The Arkansas.
Interesting.
Oh. Okay.
Go.
We're on.
You ready?
Yes.
Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 20th, 2013 meeting of the Hot Springs Board of Directors. Tonight our invocation will be led by Ms. Paula Childs, to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand with me at this time.
Heavenly Father, I'm thankful that you have a good plan and a good future for our city. And I just pray and ask you tonight that you would give wisdom to our board and our city government, that every decision and every vote that they make would fit into that plan. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I hereby call this meeting to order.
Wow.
Mr. Clerk, if you will call the roll.
Yes.
Please.
Jones.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
McCabe.
Here.
Garcia.
Here.
Foley. Carney. Davidson.
Here. Directors, are there any corrections, additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda, including items, if any, to be removed from the consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I move to remove item 26 on ordinance 01351 until such time the board can have a work session to review and bring back to the next meeting following that.
Item number 26.
We have a motion to remove item 26 from the agenda. Is there a second to that motion? You have a second, Mayor. If you would call for the roll on the amendment to the agenda.
All in favor of the motion, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Call the roll.
Clark.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Mayor, if you would now ask for a vote on the approval of the agenda as amended.
All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No?
I think you're asking for a motion, though.
That's right, the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second. To approve the agenda as amended.
Okay. All in favor of the agenda as amended, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion adopted. Are there any other additions, modifications to the agenda? So moved. Okay. At this time, do we have any guests to be recognized from the directors?
Mayor, if we could, we have minutes from the August 6th meeting and the July 30th special meeting
Apologize. There they
for
are.
approval.
I'm sorry. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions, or modifications to the minutes from the previous meeting held on August 6th and the special meeting on July 30th? Hearing none, do I have a motion in favor to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion approved. Now, are there guests to be recognized?
Yes.
Garcia? Director Garcia?
Yes, thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce and present the 2013 Sister City International Youth Leadership Award winner, Caroline Cole. Caroline is a student from Lakeside High School here in Hot Springs, and she was recognized for going above and beyond what is expected of a student to promote the Sister City experience. She became involved with the Hot Springs Sister City program and applied to be a student delegate to travel to Hanamaki, Japan, Hot Springs Sister City. She was able to travel there in 2012, and she's a member of her high school flag corps, and she made accommodations to get special poles that could be transported to Japan, and she did an excellent job presenting her talent in Japan and sharing part of her culture here with her high school with the Japanese students. She acted as a student coordinator and secured host families, arranged a welcome dinner, and created an itinerary for a group of Hanamaki High School students that visited Lakeside. So it's my pleasure to present Caroline Cole.
Thank you so much. It's such a great honor to represent Hot Springs to receive this award, and I'd like to thank the City of Hot Springs for being a great support system for our Sister City program. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to Ms. Cole. I'd like to introduce from the Arkansas School for the Math, Sciences, and Arts, Corey Alderdice, the director, and Greg Reed, if you could come forward. I believe we have a resolution to present to you. It's a proclamation, whereas in 1991, under the leadership of then Arkansas's First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton, a proposal of a statewide math and science school was prepared and presented to Governor Bill Clinton. The Arkansas School for Mathematics and Sciences, ASMS, was then established by Acts 259 and 305 of the Arkansas General Assembly in 1991. Using the slogan, "Clear as a Bell," the City of Hot Springs, under the leaderships of Mayors Melinda Barron and Helen Seelig, worked to secure the city as location for the school. In 1992, Hot Springs was chosen as the location for the school, and the first students arrived on the ASMS campus on August 23, 1993. In 2003, Act 1305 of the Arkansas General Assembly amended ASMS's mission to include the arts. The name was changed to the Arkansas School for Mathematics, Sciences, and the Arts, ASMSA, and the school joined the University of Arkansas system on January 1, 2004. The mission of ASMSA is to create, encourage, and sustain throughout the state of Arkansas an educational community of academically talented students, faculty, and staff that pursues knowledge of mathematics, sciences, and the arts. Students from all 75 Arkansas counties have attended ASMSA, and since 1994, ASMSA has had a total of 1,935 graduating students. Now, therefore, I, Ruth Carney, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, on behalf of the Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim and acknowledge the day of August 23, 2013 as Arkansas School for Mathematics, Sciences, and the Arts Day in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and commend and congratulate ASMSA on its 20 years of serving and providing the best educational opportunities for our students in Hot Springs and throughout the state of Arkansas. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed on this 23rd day of August in the year of our Lord 2013, and signed by Suzanne Davidson. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the board, for this particular recognition. Over the last several weeks during the quiet times of the summer, we've spent a considerable amount of effort going through the early history of our institution, and it's been certainly a rich 20 years. Most of all, as we went through that information on the earliest days of the program, it stands quite clear the resolve that members of this community had in establishing what would not only be an educational jewel for the state of Arkansas, but certainly what would ultimately become one of the finest points of learning anywhere in the country. We are an institution that serves the entirety of the state of Arkansas, but certainly most of all, our heart and our lifeblood originates in this community and the support we enjoy, not only from members of this board, but members of the entire community at large. So again, we thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to Friday's celebration.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to recognize our new President and CEO of the Hot Springs Metro Partnership, Mr. Jim Fram.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's indeed an honor to have to spend just a few minutes with you this evening. And thank you, directors, for taking time to listen to this. We're distributing an executive summary of the strategic plan for economic development for Hot Springs that was developed by TIP Strategies out of Austin, Texas. Their principal is a Mr. John Roberts, who at one time served as Secretary of Commerce for the state of Texas, and has put together a plan that encompasses really 4 elements. Those elements are downtown development, business attraction and retention, talent attraction, and quality of place. At some time at a future meeting, I would like to make a more in-depth presentation of this strategic plan after you've had time to review that, and would like to ask you to respectfully consider endorsing this plan along with other organizations and associations in the community to show unified support for bringing new jobs and new capital investment to this region going forward. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, we will now hear our city manager's report.
Thank you, Director Davidson. In July, we had Operation Clean Sweep, which is an annual program designed to allow city workers to go through various neighborhoods in Hot Springs to deal with trash, property maintenance issues, and nuisances that create blight in our neighborhoods. On week 1, we had 400 packets dropped off door to door advising people of what the codes are in Hot Springs. 42 notices of violation were issued to property owners who had obvious violations of the code on their property that were in conflict with property maintenance requirements. On week 2, taking more of a proactive, a carrot approach, the sanitation department's trucks visited the neighborhoods on a daily basis, collecting items placed curbside by residents. The total stops for the week were 91, and the city was able to collect about 44,000 pounds of debris from our neighborhoods, which equals about 22 tons. Then on week 3, the neighborhood service inspectors, which are part of our planning and community development department, followed up on the violations that were issued on week 1 and returned to write tickets to address the remaining violations. This board and the staff are committed to working with neighborhoods to provide a high quality of life and to prop up property values. We appreciate working with property owners who take pride in their neighborhoods, and will work very seriously to combat those who choose not to because they affect the people who do. That's my report.
Thank you. Do any directors have any announcements of upcoming events? None? Okay. At this time, we will acknowledge the final financial statements notice for June 2013. The financial records of the city are on file and open for public inspection at the finance office located on Airport Road. The next item of business is consideration of the consent agenda. Items in this section are of a routine nature and will be considered as one item of business without discussion. I will now entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Mayor, I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Garcia.
Yes. Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Adopted.
The consent agenda is adopted. Before we go to the next new business, I would like to remind all visitors that to turn off your cell phones. Secondly, that if you are here to speak to one of the items that's coming up, one of the public hearings, it's a reminder that the public speaking sections are 3 minutes long. There will be a timer on the monitors, and a signal will go off, a beep, that the city clerk has, and we'll ask you to suspend your speaking at that time. The next item of consideration is a public hearing to vacate a portion of a certain street right-of-way located along Barclay Place.
Call the hearing to order.
So I call this hearing to order.
Has anyone signed up to speak?
Is anyone? Let's see. Yes. We have,
I think John's speaking.
he's representing, but Perry Lomax?
He's not here for that.
Mr. Lomax, are you signed up for this item, Barclay Place? Okay.
To the board, I'm just going to read some things that I've noticed. The transportation depot.
I think he's at the.
Mr. Lomax, are you here to speak on this vacation of Barclay Place? It's a street. Are you here to speak on the street of Barclay Place?
No.
Okay. You're signed up for public commentary?
Yes.
Yes, sir. That'll be later in the meeting.
At the end of the meeting.
Yes,
She just called my name. I thought she was calling me.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Sorry. This is for Barclay Place. John Girolamo.
Yeah. John Girolamo, 600 Central Avenue. First of all, you have two items on this, and I'm not really clear if it's two different portions of the street.
No, sir. We're required by law to have a public hearing. The action item will be the next matter of business on the agenda.
Okay. So if I just speak my mind now and then say ditto for the rest, that'll work?
I'm sure we'll remember.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. My concern is, first of all, I have appealed the expansion of Oak Lawn, which I believe is going to be heard on September 3rd.
Yes.
The problem I have with this is that this is still a public street. It does provide parking for the public that is not paid for. It does have a value. I have a concern that Oak Lawn is operating slowly, kind of like an octopus, slowly taking over portions of that neighborhood. They've had several rezoning of residential properties. I believe this is just a continuum of that. My objection to this is that I did not see this on the master plan of their expansion. So either it was there and they were arrogant enough to believe that it would be passed without any objection, or that it's not on the plan, which is going to be appealed. I would request that at the very minimum that we put this off until another date. I believe that this property has value. Just because they own property that surrounds it doesn't mean they should get it for free. And mostly, every piece of parking around there, except if you're going to a bank or a convenience store, is paid parking. So for the neighborhood, or for even visitors that just want to be in that neighborhood, there's no place to park for free. I believe that this is just more of, if Oak Lawn was a subdivision, this would be considered an illegal way of making a subdivision, slowly taking small parcels of land for their ultimate objective, many of which are not even noticed to the public. From my reading of the code, including the expansion of Oak Lawn, it's not from the building that you have to notify people. You have to notify people within 200 feet of the property line, which would include Trivista, and all of the surrounding neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mr. Jerome.
Okay, thank you. And ditto for the next one.
Mr. Vines, you're signed up. Are you? All right, thank you. We don't have anyone else signed up for this item. Okay.
Now close the public hearing.
I'm going to now close the public hearing. The next item of business is to consider ordinance number 01347. First of all, I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
I so moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and read by title only. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules, please say so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Council, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 01347, an ordinance vacating a portion of a certain street right-of-way located along Barclay Place and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you now entertain a motion and a second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Anyone else signed up?
Or Mr. Girolamo?
Okay, he's ditto.
He's ditto. Mr. Girolamo.
John, you're still ditto on this item?
Okay. Okay. Where am I now?
Is there any discussion by the board?
Director Garcia.
Thank you. It's my understanding that this vacation of the street is similar to one that we recently approved in District 1 up off behind the Alligator Farm in Whittington. And that what initiated this was that a business that owned the building at the end of this one-way street sold their property, and that one owner, which owns all the property around this, and that it's 200 feet of a dead-end street. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. It's my understanding.
200 feet.
So to be fair and equitable, how could we not treat them the same? I don't understand how we could do that. But I had, this is in District 5, and I've had 2 community meetings and had no objections.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Adopted.
The ordinance is adopted. The next item of consideration is a public hearing on the annexation of certain lands that are completely surrounded by the incorporated limits of the City of Hot Springs, known as the Fontana Enclave. So do I open up the...
Open up public.
Okay. The public hearing on this is started. Do we have any speakers signed up for this? Yes, we do. Okay. No, we don't. It's not very easy to read. We have no speakers. Okay. Having none.
Anyone? Close the public hearing.
Okay. We close the public hearing. The next item of business is to consider ordinance number 01348. First of all, I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and read by title only. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules, say so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Council, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 01348, an ordinance annexing certain lands that are completely surrounded by the incorporated limits of the City of Hot Springs, Fontana Street Enclave, and for other purposes. That concludes your reading. If you now entertain a motion and a second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Selman?
Thank you. This is action initiated by the City of Hot Springs Board of Directors pursuant to Arkansas Code, which provides that when the incorporated limits of a municipality have completely surrounded an unincorporated area, then the governing body of the municipality may propose an ordinance calling for annexation of that land. There are 14 separate ownerships, approximately 85 acres in this enclave. There are a number of individuals, trusts, and a church, Lake Valley Community Church, in that area. An earlier public hearing was held by the board on July 2nd. During that hearing, 2 issues arose. Johnny Breckling testified that his family had a seasonal fireworks stand on the golf links corner of Shady Grove over the years, and he would like to be able to continue that. And Mr. Richard Phillips expressed a desire to be able to continue developing his property under rules applicable to unincorporated Garland County rather than city rules as of that date, July 2nd. In order to respond to those requests, we have incorporated language specific to them into the ordinance that is before you tonight. Specifically, those are that the 3 acres owned by Richard and Phyllis Phillips is currently under development, and they may continue development under regulations in effect as of July 2nd, including construction of a storage building and a residence. The second is the Breckling request for 20.57 acres fronting Shady Grove and golf links. And in order to accommodate their request, there is a fairly long condition that has been put together. The sale of fireworks will be only by the Brecklings, and that will be as documented by the state police permit. And it shall be allowed after annexation until it has been discontinued for 1 year. It's subject to all fire safety conditions, as well as specifically requiring that there be a tent permit each time. That has a permit cost, and that will be assessed each time. That temporary electrical power for the stands must be done by a licensed electrician, and a permit is required for that. The fire code requires clearing of brush for 25 feet around the area. Fire code also requires installation of a sign stating no smoking matches or open flames within 50 feet. And each time the stand is to be open, a permit must be obtained by the owner from the Hot Springs Fire Department. And so that concludes the specifics of the ordinance. This would go into effect on, let's see, October 21st, 2013. The ordinance does include a request to Planning Commission to make a recommendation for permanent zoning. In the interim, before permanent zoning would be assigned and become effective, there is a temporary zone required by Hot Springs Code to be in place, and that is R1 rural residential. So, any questions? I'd be glad to answer those. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion by the directors? Okay. Hearing none, please call the roll.
McCabe.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. The next item of business is to consider resolution number R13174. Council, please read the resolution by title.
Resolution R13174, resolution approving a conditional use for New Choice Group Home at 710 West Grand Avenue. That concludes the reading. If you now entertain a motion, a second to adopt, and have discussion, if any.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
There's any further discussion? Ms. Selman?
Thank you. This is an appeal of a Planning Commission decision that was made pursuant to a board remand back to Planning Commission at an earlier appeal on this request to operate a residential group living facility at 710 West Grand Avenue in an area zoned C10. In that appeal, which was prepared by Jerry Rappan, a nearby neighbor, there was a huge amount of information, including some information which has now been incorporated into the conditions for approval of this request. And if you recall, the board, at their earlier appeal, directed Planning Commission to consider new conditions, and they have done that. But as that has been appealed, we are proposing a slight change to those conditions. Planning Commission had 5 conditions. We're proposing 7 this evening. I'd like to go through the conditions first before going through the project request. That's a little bit unusual, but because this set of conditions responds to new information, I think those should be before you and before the public before we go into the details. The request was for a group living facility not to exceed 21 residents. As proposed for approval at this time, the 7 conditions are as follows. The development shall not exceed 13 residents, including staff, in compliance with adopted city codes. The development site shall be constructed and developed in strict accordance with the approved site plan, including construction of a 6-foot fence that is fully opaque upon installation and prohibiting front yard parking. And this was as depicted on the revised site plan, but some people believed that that was not, I guess, direct enough. So we have taken what was on that site plan and put it into the language of the condition. The approval encompasses only what is illustrated on the site plan as shown. Any expansion will require the submission of a separate application and approval. All construction and construction activity is to be accomplished in strict accordance with the development plan and all approval conditions and with the minimum standards, codes, rules, regulations, and policies as may now or hereafter be required or enacted by the City of Hot Springs, the State of Arkansas, and or the United States of America, including the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, whether or not submitted for staff review or Planning Commission approval. No construction shall be permitted until the building permit has been issued. Any person convicted of illegal manufacture or distribution of a controlled substance shall not occupy 710 West Grand Avenue, New Choice Group Residence. And number 7, compliance with applicable codes as well as with conditions of approval within 1 year from the date of this resolution shall be required, or Planning Commission may schedule, I think we changed that, did we not?
We did.
Which
now reads compliance with applicable codes as well as the conditions of approval within 1 year from the date of this resolution shall be required, or New Choice conditional use approval CU 130012 shall expire.
Thank you very much. The perils of recycling. I did not print a new copy. This particular project is an existing structure. It is in a C2 zone district. It is in an area that is quite diverse in terms of surrounding land uses and zoning. There are residential uses, there are commercial uses, they are in walking distance of other institutional and service uses. The project, as presented, meets the requirements of Hot Springs Code. The change from 21 residents to 13 comes from the submittal subsequent to Planning Commission's approval earlier this year. The fire marshal and the building official visited the site, were provided with measurements of the inside of the structure. It is somewhat less than 2,800 square feet, and the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code requires that there be no less than 200 gross square feet per occupant. So you can't have people that are parts of people. So the nearest whole number is 13 to get that 200 square feet. So that is a major difference in what is before you tonight. Planning Commission made findings, and I would like to share those with you as well. This is one of the longest packets I think you've had before you in some time. Planning Commission found that the board remanded this item to them on May 22nd, that the application materials demonstrate compliance with the Hot Springs zoning code and the applicable sections, the current site plan with the conditions imposed, addressed impact mitigation, codes and other regulations currently in effect and enforced by other agencies address non-land use impacts. This is a subtlety that I would like to emphasize. The state and Hot Springs Code as well contain standards for any number of kinds of things that relate to dwellings, to homes, to how they are set up in terms of safety and public health. Planning Commission gets to look at land use and the impacts of land use. It's tempting to ask Planning Commission to go beyond the authority that they are given in the code and by the state, to put numbers to things that are in fact the responsibility of other agencies to enforce. The fire marshal and the chief building official have authority that Planning Commission does not have. In imposing a condition that says to any land use applicant that compliance with other codes is required is really as far as Planning Commission gets to go. Planning Commission can't interpret those other codes, and Planning Commission doesn't enforce those other codes. So if you're feeling like there hasn't been enough of a hammer used by Planning Commission on this type of project, it's because they have gone as far as the code allows them to in enforcing certain requirements. And as other parts of the project go on, construction is subject to those other rules. Those rules are enforced by the building official and the fire marshal. So, also, Planning Commission found that after careful evaluation of the impacts to the neighborhood and the city by Planning Commission, after carefully weighing conditions and methods proposed by the Commission and by the applicant, with those conditions, the proposed conditional land uses impacts are ameliorated as required by the code. Now, you've heard the 7 conditions that are on the resolution tonight. Planning Commission's recommendation is that you approve this. They have provided their reasons. Those reasons are sound and based on standards, and the decision is now in your hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have 6 people signed up to speak to this issue. First is George Pritchett.
George Pritchett, 210 Carl Drive, District 5. You know, I'm appalled that this is back on the agenda. We beat these people to death. I'm ashamed of what this board has done. These are people that have been through a rehab program that we're trying to find some housing for. It's a sober living facility that you're going to have some oversight, not supervised, but some oversight. You're going to have your police force that's going to watch this place like a hawk, because 50 of us have probably called and said do so. I might be one of those too. This not in my backyard is about to be worn out. There's crime all over this city. If you were to impose the requirements you just listed on everybody a mile from this facility, you'd have to go out and pick up 100 and 150 people tonight that already live in that neighborhood, and some are sex offenders, some have cooked meth, some are still cooking meth, and you can buy it in the neighborhood, folks. I just want you to know. I suspect all these additional steps have been successful, and we're reducing it to 13. And that's about all we're going to accomplish. We're going to have to give them this. Your city attorney has told you this is a city land, or this is a land use issue. We have to look at it like a land use issue. And I understand why you don't want them in your neighborhood, but I live down the other end of town, and I had crime in my carport last week. So it's all over. You all need to understand that. When you have people coming forth in our community that are willing to provide a facility for people that are getting out of rehab, there's no money in this business. There's not any money at all. They're doing this with their assets and their personal resources. And I think we need to let them do it. These kind of places are all over town. Some of them y'all don't even know about that people are doing, because they've escaped the purview of this board and the purview of the people in that neighborhood. Last night on the 10 o'clock news, if you were watching, you heard them talk about people being released from jail and prison. These people aren't. These people are being released from rehab. People released from jail and prison face the same problems. They're all over your community. They're all over your neighborhoods. They're living in garage apartments. They're living all around. If y'all deny this, you folks are liable civilly and possibly criminally as individuals, in addition to the city. This is going to bring down the wrath of the national media if you turn this down, I'm afraid, because you just can't keep saying we're going to do this. This is a protected class of citizens, whether you agree or you don't agree. Same as disabled, same as racial. We have to give this to them. Again, I'm ashamed that we brought this up so many times. City Attorney, you've done a great job telling these people what they need to do. Do what he recommends. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Spindler.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Spindler. I live at 640 Quapaw. And first off, let me thank the Board of Directors of Hot Springs allowing me to speak. Second, I would like to commend and thank the Board of Directors and the Planning Commission for the time taken to have an additional look at the request for conditional use permit for the new Choice Group home. The newest resolution has 7 issues stated, and I will not stand here and reread them, but I will focus on my previous objections. My focus on because my focus on previous objections were the number of occupants because of possible health issues due to the density. The new recommendations lower the number to 13. Yes, I would like to see it less, but this is a much more manageable number of occupants. Yes, 13 is a better number, but there still need to be rules in place to manage, monitor health issues. This also gives the residents a more manageable personal space. They are not incarcerated. They are there because they opt to be there. They are entitled to a healthy environment to aid their recovery. Also, since FHA considers these residents to be disabled, the ADA rules must be implemented and followed to the letter of the law. I do hope there will be a plan of care in place to monitor the activity of these residents. And there will be rules in place to monitor their outside activities as not to become a nuisance to the businesses and residents surrounding them. Be a good neighbor is important. I fully understand Mr. Rapin's concerns, since the owners of the property have continued to refuse to provide a plan of care, including rules for residency. This was my request the last go-round on this issue, 18 months ago. And I have yet to see anything in writing. Being a healthcare professional, we have always had a plan of care in writing. My final request to the City Board of Directors and the Planning Commission are to evaluate existing rules and ordinances and implement a set of current rules to better evaluate this sort of request so this long drawn-out process does not happen again. I know for a fact there are cities in Arkansas that do have rules and ordinances in place to guide management of these issues. I want again to thank the City Board of Directors and the Planning Commission for the time they have spent to reevaluate these requests and objections to this project. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Glenn Duncan.
I'm going to wait my time.
All right, thank you. Marsha Blackwelder.
Good evening, Marsha Blackwelder, 701 Prospect Avenue. This proposed project has already benefited from a re-examination and revision of some of the issues and clearly demonstrates the necessity and validity of the public hearing process. It is my hope, intent, and purpose to address some of the remaining issues not resolved by revised staff report June 2013 or resolution R13174. Mitigation will address the issues and create a better project and permanent solutions in which we can all be assured that this project considers all aspects and places conditions that not only values the applicant's rights, but those of the community and neighborhood of which you are all charged with due deliberation and consideration. A conditional use permit is decided on a case-by-case basis. Conditions of use are placed to mitigate issues that do not protect the public safety and welfare permanently and efficiently and will not require the poor use of the police or code enforcement. A condition of landscaping to the front small portion of land and to the front parkway currently used as 4 parking spaces that sits on top of the sidewalk blocks safe pedestrian access along West Grand Avenue, Highway 7270, and is not in compliance with 162103B nor Arkansas State Department of Highways Transportation rules and regulations governing egress and ingress onto a state highway would permanently eliminate these spaces from use or consideration of use and would comply with Hot Springs Zoning Code 16272A and F, 1620103B, 1620103, and 16252A. Neither myself nor the appellant has failed to take into account the long-standing unlawful blocking of the sidewalk and pedestrian access asserted by staff response 2.5A. I would refer you to Hot Springs Zoning Code 1620103, scope of regulations, development standards governing parking, which states, and I quote, or before conversion from one type of use or occupancy to another. C2, General Business District 16252A, concept and description states, C2 businesses are most often located on less expensive real estate, allowing parking spaces, loading areas, landscaping, increased traffic, and lower concentration of buildings. The general plan, Hot Springs 2030, specifically discusses properties in the transition zone for well-executed adaptive reuse. A condition of landscaping will help with the massing of the structure, provide open space, create a benefit to the property itself as well as the neighborhood and community at large. According to revised staff report page 9, which states, the infill site neither requires nor provides open space other than its yards. It is the fact that there is no open space, no yards, and a vast majority of the property is hardscape. I would ask for conditional landscaping. Thank you very much.
Jerry Rappan.
Thank you, Ms. Davidson. I'd like to ask that you waive the 3-minute requirement because I am the appellant. It's a quasi-judicial proceeding. I have not been able to talk to my city director or members of the board, and I will try to be as brief as I can. First of all, I'd like to thank all the members of the board for the time that you've taken on this, the direction that you've placed on city staff, the city attorney, Brian Albright, who's spent a lot of time on this, who's worked with me on this. Kathy Selman, who I know in the planning department, has spent a lot of time on this, so we appreciate your efforts to get this right. You only get to do it once, and it has major consequences. I thank you for your consideration. There has certainly been some major progress with the conditions that have put in place, but there are some things that need continued attention. In fact, and I'm going to address the concerns that we have additionally. Fencing, if you will look at the issue of fencing in your packet, page 193 will list conditions that were placed previously by the Planning Commission. The first time they indicated there would be screening, the fencing I'm referring to, minimum 6 feet in height and opaque upon installation shall be installed along the east and north property lines and along the west property line as approved by Hot Springs Fire Marshal. If you will look at your packet again on page 149, where we do have a site plan, and you look along the east side, which is the right side of the packet, there are two lines. There's a wider bold line, and then inside that is a smaller line. The smaller line on the inside represents the fence. And the fence, contrary to the condition that was imposed by the Planning Commission initially, does not begin in the front on the east side on this revised drawing. It begins at the back of the fire station on the east side. So a condition that you sent back previously for further conditions, in fact, got taken away with no consideration whatsoever. We would like that initial condition to be put back in. The same drawing, while you're looking at it, you can see along the west side, the fire marshal has had some concerns about it extending the entire length along the west side, and the appellants have agreed with that so that it goes only halfway back. And then there is a sign on your left that says gate. We would like to assure that that's a locked gate so that the residents don't come out there and take their smoke breaks or whatever and get into the neighboring yard, which is just right behind my yard as well. So I have a personal concern about 13 people walking back through into an inappropriate area. The occupancy of 13 is still a major concern to the city of Hot Springs. The state codes allow reductions to 2 people per bedroom. With 2 people per bedroom, you're still going to have 8 to 10 people or 9 to 10 people in that facility sharing 2 or 3 bathrooms, depending on what the managers decide to do with the use of that. And we feel like 2 people in a bedroom is adequate. 13 people month to month, men. And I'm not talking about recovering individuals. I'm talking about any individuals. You put 3 people together in a bedroom, you put that many in a small space with no recreational area and no yard, what are they going to be doing? They're going to be getting outside and around and looking for somewhere that can be green grass and relaxation, and that means the neighbors, not the facility that's available to them. Also, if you look at the site map on page 150, the site map indicates many places that are just not appropriate. May I continue, and I'll be brief?
Your call.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rapan. We can only allow 3 minutes per person. If you had put this in writing, we might have been able to do something.
Well, I have put my thoughts into writing in my appeal, and I hope you'll review those.
Thank you. Rhonda Harris.
Rhonda Harris, 708 West Grand. I'd like to start by saying thank you for listening to the concerns of me, my family, and our local business. I am very glad the number of residents has been reduced. This is my biggest concern. Mr. Wagner volunteered in one of our previous meetings that they would put up a 6-foot privacy fence all the way around 710 West Grand to protect them from a bad element and to give their residents their privacy. Their new map does not have the fence all the way around like he stated he would do. It seems like it just went away without any discussion. That's really all I want. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the public speakers we have signed up for this issue. Is there any further discussion by the board?
I have some questions.
Karen?
Ms. Selman, could I ask about, this was brought up about the fence 2 or 3 times, and it's in the conditions, but there may be a discrepancy on the drawing. Can you address that?
Can you be more specific about your...
Well, it seems to be different understanding, not a common understanding. What is does the fence or does the drawing accurately reflect what the fence condition is to be?
The drawing accurately represents what I understand the condition to be, yes. On a residential use, when there is an adjacent commercial use, if the commercial use is coming to the residential use, the commercial use is required to install screening. And the residential use is not. This is a residential use. What is more typical in a residential setting is fencing and screening of a backyard. That's what is represented on the site plan. That's about all I know about that.
And there was a question about parking, and there may still be some misunderstanding. What is the number of parking?
The number of parking spaces is 7. They are in the rear of the building. The front area is not designated for parking, and as the code says, upon conversion, those spaces no longer can be used. With a conditional use, if there is a violation of a condition, then Planning Commission can schedule the item for hearing in order to consider what needs to be done up to and including canceling the approval of the use. So there is no great big letter on the front of the building that says no more parking, but the required parking is somewhere else. This is a conversion from the old use, and the front parking isn't there anymore, if this is approved.
And what is the age of the building?
I don't know the age of the building. It's probably in excess of 80 years.
And when was it last occupied?
Several years ago, and that is something that the applicant can probably address more specifically.
Is the applicant going to speak?
He's not signed up. Is Mr. Wagner here?
They're here.
Be happy to say what the lawyers. Do you have additional?
And just to summarize that, there's a 6-foot privacy fence in the back.
There is. It surrounds the
and that's
backyard.
what's reflected on the plan.
Yes, that's reflected on the plan. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Our attorney told us to ask y'all to please approve this as we submitted. And we have talked, and that's all we have to say.
Thank you. Appropriate to ask a question. I understand there's someone here from the Fair Housing Authority.
Director Garcia, we do have in our company tonight Carol Johnson, who's the director of the Arkansas Fair Housing Commission. However, she is here tonight as an observer and has asked specifically that she not be addressed with regard to questions because that would taint her ability to investigate this matter should that be required. Okay. Appreciate her company here. She and I stood side by side and prosecuted in this very room when this was municipal court. Good to see you, Carol.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Well, then, Mr. Attorney, may I ask you?
Yes, ma'am.
A question. Because it was my understanding tonight that the question before the board was not for the land use, but for consideration of the conditions for this conditional use permit.
Yes, that's my understanding. When this was remanded back to the Planning Commission at your previous meeting, the land use itself was approved, but further conditions were to be investigated, and Planning Commission has done so and has brought back 7 conditions that would be tied to this conditional use application. I would agree with Ms. Selman that this is about as far as we can go. Mr. Rappan is correct. There is Arkansas statute that does allow municipalities and the state to set a standard of 2 occupants per bedroom. However, the City of Hot Springs has not adopted such a standard. The only standard that we have is the International Fire Prevention Act, which is incorporated within our code, that does limit the occupancy to 200 to 1 person per 200 feet. So 13 is the limited number that we can apply to this issue. If our standard had been 2 people per bedroom, we could have imposed that standard, but that is not yet our standard. It may be something that the Planning Commission recommends in the future, but that standard cannot be applied to this applicant. That would be a ex post facto law. They're already on the application stage, and so we must apply what the current standards are.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions or discussions?
So the question then is to vote to approve these conditions.
It is. It would be to approve this conditional use application with the stated conditions within the resolution that's been presented. And just a matter of housekeeping, I know that we have a light board here this evening. We have two members absent. The passage of this or any ordinance or resolution tonight will require 4 votes. Mm-hmm. So if I'm just trying to be practical with you, if sometimes board members like to count heads and see whether or not they might want to abstain on an issue. An abstention would not pass this issue.
Any further discussion?
I have one question, and I'm not sure if maybe Brian or who's the appropriate person or Ms. Selman. Who enforces this 1 person to 200 square foot issue?
The chief building official and the fire marshal will enforce any issues relative to the occupancy, what's inside the building itself. This decision for you tonight is the land use alone. Mm-hmm. All other technical codes, enforcement of those would be through the fire marshal or the chief building official.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, if you'd please call the roll.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Duff.
Okay. This motion is adopted. Resolution is adopted, excuse me. The next item of business is to consider ordinance number 01349.
Give him a second to clear out.
She's from Little Rock.
If you will, we still have business to conduct, so you can exit quietly. Thank you. The next item of business is to consider ordinance number 01349. First of all, I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
Move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and read by title only. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Council, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 01349, an ordinance amending the subdivision code of the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, Ordinance 5715 as amended to establish a planning area boundary and policies and for other purposes. That concludes your reading. You can now entertain a motion and a second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Do I have a motion
move.
to adopt?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Ms. Selman?
Thank you very much. The Arkansas Code Annotated has a section called Territorial Jurisdiction, which grants to certain municipalities authorities to prepare plans, ordinances, and regulations beyond city limits. In the past, that distance for a municipality of Hot Springs size was 5 miles. Action by our 2013 legislature, which was effective last week, changes the allowable distance for that territorial jurisdiction for cities of 8,000 to 60,000 to 1 mile. So that will account for considerable shrinkage from the distance that we have had in the past. Planning Commission has very seriously considered alternatives in terms of where that line should be. It sounds like an easy decision, just draw a line a mile around the city and bingo, but no. There are many things that come into making that kind of a recommendation to you, and Planning Commission took a look at all of it. In doing so, they came up not only with a proposed map, which is called Map C and is the map before you tonight, but also with 9 policies that accompany that map. They go together. So what we're looking at tonight is adopting the 9 policies and adopting, as Planning Commission recommends to you, Map C. The statute is very, very specific about the requirements and procedures, and I would like to assure you that all of those steps have been performed and they've been happening in the proper order. So this comes to you precisely as it should. Map C was one of 4 considered by Planning Commission, and all 4 of those maps are in your packet. The reason that Planning Commission preferred the preferred map, there are 6 reasons. Number 1 is that Map C includes existing suburban and urban density development along Lake Hamilton, whose service and facility needs more closely mirror those of municipal developments. If we're looking at regulating, we should be regulating for a purpose, not just because we can. The potential for development within these areas for suburban and urban development is far higher than it is in other areas of the county. Number 2, Map C includes maximum commercial development potential along highway and arterial corridors. Sales tax pays Hot Springs bills. If we want to continue to pay our bills, it's important that we are able to influence the nature and location of commercial development and assure that it is done in a way that is successful not only for the City of Hot Springs and Garland County, but also for those people who are developing the project. So careful review of development regulations assists in meeting that goal. Map C includes the westerly portion of the Umetco site, currently under consideration for regional recreation facility. It also looks at the associated support uses such as lodging and restaurants, which typically follow a major recreational development such as this. Map C includes logical future urban growth areas where urban services and infrastructure are or economically can be made available. It provides a basis for logical growth of Hot Springs, and it excludes areas northeast, north, and northwest of the city where development potential is constrained by political and natural features such as Hot Springs National Park, topography, existing development patterns, and water districts. We have a rural water district in the northeast part of the area. Rural water districts provide for a very specific need, and that is domestic water. Fire flow is not part of their mission. So an extensive commercial development in that area could be far more unlikely than in some of the areas served by Hot Springs Water, for example. So if you look at the map, about a third of the way up there, right around 270, if you go from, let's see, how to make this work. I've often said that people who discuss maps over the phone are crazy people. This feels the same way to me. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about what's on the map before I try to get you somewhere on the map. On the map, you'll see a number of different colors. The colors represent future land uses. This is not a zoning map. There is no zoning proposed tonight for the areas in the territorial jurisdiction that is proposed. No zoning. The future land use map has existed since at least 1997 and probably much longer than that, but I wasn't here and I don't know. The red color is commercial. Those are areas that can, because of infrastructure or because of its location on a highway or arterial, can support commercial uses. So where you see that red, that's commercial. The area at the top of the map, where the map gets narrow, where it necks down, that boundary is the existing city limit. Planning Commission recommends to you that you not exercise territorial jurisdiction beyond the city limit in that north area. So northeast, north, northwest, it's the city limit. Where it pops back out there, that takes it out just about to that 1 mile. And that's what you see there. It incorporates many existing developments on both sides of the lake, and then comes around to the east. There is good development potential there for non-residential uses, both commercial and industrial, and also encompasses that area where the little hand is, over on the right, in that UMETCO reuse area. So that's about it. Planning Commission held a public hearing. They advertised it well, asked for testimony, and no one testified either for or against. By an 8-0 vote, Planning Commission certifies the preferred planning area map C, along with planning area policies 1 through 9, and recommends that the Board of Directors adopt an ordinance amending the Hot Springs Code, Title 16, Chapter 4, Subdivisions, Section 1649, Jurisdiction and Application, establishing a new planning area and policies. And that concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. On the north end, because you may be aware that there's going to be a request to annex on Park Avenue by Mr. Guerrero, I believe, Belvedere, and I got a tour of it, and I think the city limits sort of cuts in half.
Mm-hmm.
So if it were annexed, then we just extend them at that time, or do we?
It would be possible to extend it, but you are adopting the map by ordinance. An ordinance would be required to change the map.
Okay. We have no speakers to this item. Do the directors, any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
McCabe.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Adopted.
The ordinance is adopted. The next item of business is to consider ordinance number O-1350. First of all, I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
That's a move.
Second. Thank you. I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and read by title only. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Council, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 01350, an ordinance adopting a purchasing procedure for the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, repealing certain ordinances and for other purposes. That concludes your reading. You've now entertained a motion to second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Ms. Yates?
Thank you. The ordinance before you tonight incorporates 3 recommended changes by staff to the City of Hot Springs purchasing policy. The purpose of these changes is to reflect inflation, reflect changes in technology, streamline processes, and provide greater flexibility without sacrificing appropriate controls or violating the state law. The first of these recommendations is the establishment of thresholds requiring board approval. Currently, our threshold for board approval is any contracts above $20,000. This recommends that we move that to $40,000. The second recommendation is a need for advertisement on formal bids. Currently, anything above that $20,000 we advertise. This request would remove the need to advertise on any bids except some that I will mention later on that's covered by state law. But it would remove that requirement to bid unless we thought that it would be in the best interest of the city to do so. It would remove the mandatory requirement, but still allow us to do so if we needed to. The third item is rejection of bids. Currently, the city board has the authority to reject bids, and only the city board has that authority. There have been a number of times when we've taken bids and for some reason we needed to reject them. We had to bring them back through the board process, and that slows down the process of going back out to bid again. We're asking that that be changed, the authority be given to the city manager to reject the bids, and then the city manager would be required to provide written communication to the board notifying them of the bid rejection. There is one exception to the $20,000, and that is state statute requires competitive bidding for amounts that are for public improvements, and they are defined. So we would continue to bring public improvements above $20,000 to the board, and also the advertising requirements for those contracts is laid out by state law. So we would continue to advertise for those contracts.
Any discussion? Thank you. So there's no further discussion. We need to call the roll, and our clerk is.
Computers are shutting down.
Did on me today.
Garcia.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Adopted.
The ordinance is adopted. That concludes the business section of tonight's meeting. Are there any comments from members of the board?
I would just like to thank Mr. Fram, our new CEO of the Metro Partnership, for coming to us tonight and giving us a good handout. I kind of scanned it, and it's real interesting. And I would like to see you get started as quick as possible on number 1. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Any others? Director Garcia?
Thank you. I wanted to thank the neighborhood in Tri-Vista Circle. The residents there had a neighborhood meeting last week with special thanks to Levada and Jean for hosting in their home, and a special thanks to city staff Bart Jones, Denny McFate, and Bill Burra for their assistance and presentations at this meeting and work in addressing neighborhood needs there. I also wanted to thank our Vice Chair of the Arkansas Highway Commission for his recent visit to a community meeting in District 5. And I haven't had time to tell you, I got a call back from him today, and I just told Mr. Carnahan right before the meeting that he had received input about some bridges out here on 70 East, and he came back from our meeting down to go back over those bridges and called and said they are terrible and they needed to be overlaid, and he was trying to get that to the department to get that in the overlay plan.
That's swift.
That's great.
Yes.
Thank you. And an aside, I thank you for your patience and instruction from our council, and for me to sit in Mayor Carney's place tonight.
Good job.
You
did well.
Immediately following adjournment of tonight's business meeting, there will be a public commentary here in the board chambers. For those of you who will be leaving after the adjournment, please do so quietly. There being no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Wait.
We can hear Mr.
Good job,
Lomax.
Suzanne. Hey, it gets